Today we're going to talk about that age-old question of, does size matter? And of course I'm talking about the size of the miniatures in your army. What else would I be talking about? Now, the whole reason I decided to do a video on this and not do my normal painting stuff is because I am working on the war rig, as you can see here. And if you watched my video from last week, which you can find here, you know that it took me a long time to model this and sculpt this and do the changes that I did to it to kit bash it and make it my own. And I'm really happy with how it's turning out. But the process of painting a larger miniature, it takes a long time. And in my opinion,
and I'm never wrong,
painting one miniature is going to take you about an hour, is what I'll say, for a small miniature. And that's if you're doing like slab chop or, you know, another method that's a little quicker. Granted, you can dump a bucket of paint on it and call it good and have it done in 2 seconds. But I think the average gamer is probably looking at anywhere from an hour to 2 hours for a normal small miniature. And obviously that changes if you're doing 5, 10 at a time, or, you know, working on them in a process instead of just a one and done kind of thing. But I'm an idiot.
this is true.
And so I'm trying to paint everything for as good a quality as I can do at this point in time. And so, yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it took me an hour to paint a mini, and now it's taken me closer to 2, and I'm trying to get them done really well. The exception to that is anything larger than a single normal unit. And so it brings up the question to me is, are the big units worth it? By the time that everything is said and done with this war rig, I bet it will have taken me 20 plus hours to paint it. And now, is that normal? No, I'm trying to do a really good job. I want to show something off, especially on this channel, that I can be like, hey, look at what I did. Here's the start to finish on the war rig. And it's the biggest unit that I have received for Warcrow. But Warcrow is relatively new. The factions are just starting out. They don't have a ton of units. They have enough to play and to make the game great. But basically each army is to the point right now where they have one large unit. The war rig, the North has the elemental rock thing that's super cool, and the Seanon, or the elves, are getting a cool centaur that I think is their big unit. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see when it comes out. Maybe I'll paint it on my channel if they send it to me. But they have one big unit each, and Warcrow isn't the only game that does that. Warmachine's the same way. They have their colossals or their gargantuans, and those units they're big. They're 120 millimeter bases. They're really big. I mean, compared to the war rig, they are much larger. But each faction or each army has their one big unit. Yeah, I mean, Warmachine's different because they have a lot of like medium-sized units. But that's just kind of how the game goes. And any tabletop game is that way, where they have, you know, your horde. You have a bunch of your small units, but then you have your tank. You have your giant walking robot. You have your giant walking dragon, monster, dinosaur, you know, big stuff. And it just kind of begs the question is, are they necessary? Do they make the game better? And if so, why? Recently, I have been playing a lot of Marvel Crisis Protocol. It's one of those games. I mean, you get to play as your favorite superheroes or supervillains from the Marvel Universe. It's great. And the sculpts for it are freaking amazing. Like, it's really cool. If you like Marvel Crisis Protocol, stick around. I got a lot of stuff coming for it. But one of the things I noticed about Marvel Crisis Protocol is that the units aren't huge. I mean, yes, Hulk, he's big. The Sentinels, they are big. But there's not a ton of like, I mean, there's not any huge characters that I've seen. I'm sure if like, you know, Galactus was in there or something, he'd be enormous, but he's not in the game yet. And so most of the time you're playing with just smaller units, and it is honestly one of the most fun experiences I have had with the tabletop game. And so as I'm painting this war rig, and it's taken me forever, and I'm thinking to myself, is a war rig even necessary for my army? I mean, the hegemony units are all pretty sweet. I mean, I got my fancy, horse riding unit that I think is amazing, and it's bigger than average. Is that enough? Do I need something as big as the war rig? And the honest truth is that I think the answer is yes. Don't get me wrong, Marvel Crisis Protocol, it doesn't fit. Okay, it's just not part of that game. And maybe that's what it is that when I think of a tabletop war game, I think of war. Right? And it's not just soldiers that go into war. It's soldiers and jets and tanks and battleships and all of those big things. And I think they're awesome. when I first walked into that game shop when I was 9 years old or whatever, and I was going in to buy Pokemon cards, and I saw the Warhammer army on display, and behind the counter the owner of the store was painting a tank. I was not focused on the Space Marines. Sure, they were there. Sure, they were cool. Sure, they're cheaper. They're what you want. They're what you have to buy to get into the game. What I was focused on was the tanks, was the dreadnought units that were beside them. And I thought, man, these are cool. And even the Eldari had their, I don't even know what their flying units are called, with multiple people on them. And I thought, oh my gosh, these are so cool. And so as I'm painting this work and I'm thinking, man, this takes a long time, I'm also thinking, but when I have it standing in the middle of my other hegemony units and I'm going into battle, and sure, there's not 1,000 units on the table, there's 10, 15, 20 units on the table. This is going to be the focus. This is going to be the thing that people are looking at. This is going to be the thing that I'm just like, man, I hope this thing just smashes everyone. And I'm going to think it's so cool. And in my mind, I mean, it's that variety, it's that spice of life that makes tabletop war games so fun. Yes, there is some cool stuff in having 1,000 units on the table, but let's be honest, they're a nightmare to move. They're a nightmare to get where you want them to get. You have to move 10, 15 of them every time for one turn, whereas if you have a lot of big guys, you don't have to move as much. Maybe that's why Grey Knights and Custodes always seemed like such a cool faction to me. But then again, if I got into Warhammer like hardcore, I would be buying Adeptus Mechanicus, and they're like the worst for horde stuff. So maybe not. But I think big units just make everything more fun. And yeah, they're way more time consuming, but they're worth it. At least that's my opinion. I'd love to know yours. Let me know. Am I crazy? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think big units just ruin the game? I know sometimes their mechanics are garbage, and sometimes it's hard to do their mechanics when you're doing all of the little unit mechanics. But do you think the games are better off without them? Or do you like them? And no, I'm not talking about friggin' like Warlord Titans and stuff. That's a completely different thing. I mean, you can't even put them in a normal army, right? Like the Warhound is like the only one you can. And when you do, it's like more than half your points. So it's kind of pointless. But I'm talking about like normal, big-sized units. Are they worth it? Do you like seeing them painted? Do you I guess that's another great question. Do you prefer to see the big units painted or the small units painted? Let me know. Let me know in the comments so I know moving forward if I should be focusing more on stuff like the war rig or more on stuff like single unit characters from the armies. I'd love to know. As for me, for right now, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and painting. And hopefully, like I said, that war rig will be done by this next week. It is a labor of love, and I am going as quick as I can, but it takes a long time. So sorry about that. But if you want to see it finished, please like, subscribe, stick around for the channel. Let's talk about it. Let me show you exactly what I'm doing in next week's video and how I got it to the point where it's going to be, which is hopefully done. And you can let me know what you think then. And as always, thanks for coming around. Here at Pulsegate Games, we're all about making the tabletop gaming experience better for everyone. So hit that like, hit that subscribe, build your minis, and don't forget, don't spend so much time making your world that you forget to spend some time in it. Until next time.